So, a topic that I want to talk about is public school. I have had issues with public school because my daughter, I believe, has a form of ADHD. She doesn't sit, she talks a lot, she gets out of her seat, she just doesn't take directions very well. And when we were living in Ohio, the teacher that my daughter had when we were in school was amazing. Like, she really worked with me on a plan to get her to listen in class. She was a younger teacher, so I felt like, maybe she had a little bit more patience. But the whole structure that she came up with was great. One of the things that she would tell my daughter if she didn't listen was that she was going to call her mom. The other thing was that we had a packet that every day for every class there was a smiley face, like a straight mouthed face, and then a frowny face. And for each class that they had, like English, math, science, all that stuff, she would put one of the smileys for basically what my daughter had, how she was for that class. She would call me on the regular. She would update me on her behavior. We would kind of talk about a plan to get her to listen. Like, this teacher was amazing. As soon as I moved back over to Pennsylvania, because our landlord sold our house, I put my daughter in the school area that my house was at. And the issue that I was having was that the teacher that my daughter got was not patient at all. And I'm not trying to say this in a mean way, but I've had issues even with my son, who is now 13. When he was in kindergarten, I had issues with the teacher that he had that was older. And I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be rude, but it just seems like when teachers get older, they lose patience. Like, they've been doing it for so long, it's like they just don't want to do it anymore. And my take on that is, if you are going to work with kids and you know you're going to be working with kids, you have to have patience. Whether it's daycare, whether it's sports, whether it's school, it doesn't matter. Like, if you're going to be working with kids, you need patience to be able to work with these children, especially kids who possibly have ADD, ADHD, they have anxiety issues, social disorders. Like, you're supposed to be trained to work with that and deal with that. It was the second week of school, and I was already getting messages on Class Dojo from the teacher stating that my daughter wasn't listening. She was getting out of her seat. She just was horrible, and she was like, we need to work on this. The other issue that I was having was the curriculum that the school in Ohio was working on versus the school in Pennsylvania. They were working on completely different topics. They weren't as far as the kids here in the school that she was going to. They were working on different math, different language arts. Like, when my daughter started at this school, she was really lost. Like, she didn't understand. And my daughter is one of those kids that you have to really sit down and like work with her and like really go over things multiple times for her to understand the curriculum and what is being expected. I told her teacher that she was probably going to struggle, that, they were learning words, but the words that this school in Pennsylvania that they were learning were more advanced than the words that she was learning in Ohio. The math, too, was a lot harder than it was in Ohio, and I let the teacher know that. It was week 3, and I was receiving all these papers coming home with the teacher writing in capital letters, needs work, wrong, like just really weird, like behavior from a teacher when you should expect a kid is going to have a minute, to try to learn your curriculum. They were in another state. They were in another school for 2 years. Like, you need to give it some time. So I messaged the teacher and I was like, hey, why don't we put my daughter in specials class? Like, maybe she could sit down with a couple teachers and like be able to learn what she's behind on. Do you guys have anything like that? She said that they did, and that basically, like, the thing is she needs to just focus in class and stop talking. And I'm like, okay, but that's negating the fact that she needs to sit down in these specials classes and have time to sit with everybody and or the teachers and stuff one-on-one and learn. My daughter is a one-on-one kid. Well, I had tons of issues with the teacher. My daughter was coming home crying, saying that she felt like the teacher hated her because she yelled at her. I was like, what do you mean she yelled at you? She said, oh, I got an answer wrong, and the teacher, like, yelled at me. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, what did she say? And my daughter was like, oh, she was like, no, that's wrong. And like was yelling at her, like, and my daughter doesn't make that stuff up, especially coming home crying. Like, my daughter doesn't make that stuff up. So I messaged the teacher and I was like, what is going on? Like, why is my daughter coming home upset that, you know, she was yelled at? And she was like, oh, well, I didn't really yell at her. You know, she wasn't listening today. And like the answers that she was giving were not correct. And I know she knows them. Okay, well, why are you yelling at my kid? Like, she's not going to come home and lie about that kind of stuff. So my question is, why did you feel the need to yell at her? She made up all these excuses. So I called the principal because this had been like the third time my daughter came home crying about her teacher being rude. The first time that she came home crying, she was telling me that every day, mostly after class, the kids play Heads Up 7-Up. She said when they have extra time, they will play games, you know, at the end of the school day. And she came home crying her eyes out one day, saying that they've been playing Heads Up 7-Up since she started school. And it had been about 2 months since my daughter was in this school. And she said that she has never been picked. The teacher has never picked her for Heads Up 7-Up. And my mind immediately went to, well, you're retaliating because my daughter doesn't listen. So to punish her, you're not going to pick her. Plus, on top of that, the teacher was writing, I had told her about the way that the other teacher was handling the behavior in Ohio. And I told her that she had a folder, you know, that she would, you know, do the smileys, green, yellow, or red for each class. Why don't we start doing that? She decided in the planner that the kids had, every day I had to sign the planner, and she would write in there how horrible my daughter was. Nothing positive at all. Always rude, always mean, always nasty. Oh, she didn't listen today. She needs to work on her behavior. She needs to work on talking too much. She didn't, never anything positive like, oh, she got, you know, her words right today. Like, or, oh, she did this, but yeah, she talked, but here's the positive. Like, everything was always negative. So I started getting frustrated and I called the principal and I'm like, what the hell is going on? Like, my daughter is coming home upset. This teacher's obviously being rude. She's being mean. Like, she has no patience. And of course, the principal stuck up for her because that's what they're going to do. So I asked the principal, I said, do you guys have cameras in the classroom? And she was like, no. And I'm like, I think that should be mandated. I think it should be mandated that there is cameras in the classroom, because if this teacher is screaming at my child, we're going to have a problem, like a big freaking problem. So they didn't want to own up to anything. They didn't care, you know, to own up to this teacher being an impatient asshole, basically. And I was tired of it. 2 months of my daughter coming home pretty much every other day saying that the teacher was being rude, or, you know, this kid said this, or, you know, she'd be like, oh, well, I got up to throw something away and she yelled at me and put me in the back of the classroom, or she took recess from me. And I messaged her and I'm like, why are we taking recess? Like, you're complaining that my daughter is really energetic and won't sit down, but you're going to take recess? Like, why wouldn't you want her to have recess so she chills the hell out if she's such a horrible child and she's so energetic and you can't handle my kid? So I ended up pulling her out of school because I was getting ready to have a C-section and I have a 2-year-old. I have a newborn baby now. I'm not going to put up with that, and I'm not going to deal with my daughter having all these issues with the school and me having to deal with that on top of, you know, home life and stress and stuff that we're dealing with personally. Like, I shouldn't have to deal with that shit. Like, these teachers are paid to do their job, and these schools are funded by tax dollars. There's no reason I should have to pull my kid out of school because a teacher is being a lame ass. I'm just going to say that. So I ended up pulling my daughter out of school, and I pulled my son. I didn't never put him in public school. I put him in virtual school because he had surgery. When I called the high school to see if he could ride the elevator due to having a huge surgery on his femur bone and couldn't really go up and down stairs, I was afraid he was going to fall. If he falls again, he could re-break that bone because he had cadaver bone put in and everything. So they wouldn't let my son ride the elevator. They wanted all this documentation, which I think is bullshit. Like, my kid has a huge scar on his leg. Like, he could show you. I could bring you documentation of the surgery. But they wanted the doctor to specifically write a note so my son could take the damn elevator. I'm not putting up with this public school bullshit. So my kids are in virtual school, at home, online, with me.